What's up guys, it's National Master Dem Apples here, back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at this trap or concept that 99% of chess players fall for. And even when they don't fall for this trap, they still don't know how to deal with it, and they still end up with a terrible position. So let's take a look at this trap. E4, E5. Again, this is more of a concept rather than an exact move order, but let's take a look at it from the perspective of the most common chess opening. And after E4, E5, the most common continuation is the Ruy Lopez, and especially so the Berlin. Now, here I have two options for black. A6 is also very common, and we'll examine the fishing pole from there as well. Knight f6, castles, and here begins the start of the fishing pole. Knight to g4. What are we doing with knight to g4? Well, if white does nothing, our aim is eventually to probably put our knight here and our queen here, and we'll just checkmate him. You know, when the knight takes our knight, we'll just checkmate him. Of course, this is easier said than done. So white's like, I'm gonna bite the bullet and I'm gonna attack your knight. And this is like a really natural move, and it's not a bad move. Knight to g4 is like really tricky, and h3 is the best move to deal with it. But after pawn to h5, this is kind of annoying for white. If he sits around and does nothing, this knight can get really scary in combination with, let's say, a bishop going here, attacking this pawn, you know? This could get scary, especially also with a knight coming in. So, if white opts to take this knight, after pawn takes pawn, white is dead. Like, just dead, straight up dead. You've won the game. This knight is attacked, and this queen is going to come in. So let's take a look at a couple of variations that could occur. Knight to e1 looks very logical, just moving the knight out of the way. But after queen to h4, threatening two checkmates, white's like, well, I'm going to create a flight square for my king on f2, so that when the queen comes down here, I can move my king. So white goes f4, and it's like, I'm free! Except for the fact that after pawn to g3, locked down, white is actually screwed. There is no way to prevent queen h2 or queen h1 checkmate. So, again, white can try all he wants. He can go knight f3, but this is still checkmate. Very nice. So what if white doesn't take the bait, which is kind of rare? Well, even if he doesn't, after something like d3 and he's like, oh, I screwed myself over, he goes for d3 and not knight e1. Well, we can just take the knight back. We haven't even lost any material. And after queen takes pawn, knight d4, white is still screwed. First of all, because this is a fork. Now, even if this were not a fork, black is still completely winning because of the queen h4 threat of checkmate on h1 all the time. White just can't get out of this. Let's take another look at a way this could happen. So after a6, this is a different variation of the Ruy Lopez. Takes, castles, bishop g4, pinning the knight. And this time, it's not rather the knight, but rather the bishop that's going to g4 to make our sacrifice. Fishing pole trap, you know, gotta lure them out with a little bit of bait first. h3, and now h5, completed our fishing rod or pole or whatnot. We got our bait on the pole, and after takes, and the knight moves. Again, the knight does not need to move, but after something like this, pawn takes knight and queen takes. Black is much better. Again, after something like queen h4, he's winning at least a pawn here. And this is very nice for black. So again, if white moves the knight, we have the exact same idea. We go queen h4, and after white makes a flight square for his king, we go g3, locked down, he's dead. And so this can occur in different openings. We'll take a look at a version from the Sicilian, the Taimanov or Khan, or whatever you want to call the e6 Sicilian. We have queen c7, knight f6, castles, bishop c5, and just for the sake of demonstration, I played knight f3. And after knight to g4, you can see now the knight's being bait. We got checkmate on h2, wandering around, I guess. White goes h3, trying to kick the knight, but we go h5. And after pawn takes knight, pawn takes, white is already screwed. As we know, he cannot move the knight, and so after something like pawn to e5 preventing checkmate on h2, we have pawn takes knight, and black is up a pawn at least and has a really nice position. Again, due to the open h file. It's really strong. So let's take a look at one of the games my editor played recently. He utilized the fishing pole trap really well. e4, d5, and we have a Scandinavian defense. Opening is not important. He made a couple mistakes, but it's all right because it was a bullet game. And now, after here, apparently white has an instant win with bishop takes c7 in a very pretty way, but of course you're not going to calculate that in a bullet game. Knight b5. The bait has been set, and soon after, black attacks the bait. This is very natural, and most of your opponents will do this. But now, editor Luke protects the knight with his pawn because he knows the fishing pole trap. Bishop takes, and now, even though the pawn isn't even attacking anything, we have this open file, and the queen and rook are about to get angry on it. Knight b6, c4, kicking the knight. Knight moves, queen a3, attacking the knight, and threatening some penetration. And after d6, protecting the knight on b4. There is c5, disconnecting it. And this opponent's like, oh my gosh, I'm so smart, I forked you. But after check and c6, turns out there is unstoppable mate, either on b7, c7, or queen, the very nice queen to a8 check, followed by knight takes queen, followed by rook takes knight, checkmate. Very nice. So his opponent chose to go down like this and hang checkmate. So fishing pole trap, very powerful, and I hope you can win your next game with it. That's all, and I'd say I'm out.